Enjoy great programming brought to you by the Media Liberty Alliance Foundation in cooperation with OBBM Network TV and other independent networks, bringing citizen-led creative local media to the forefront of local communities to foster a greater understanding of constitutional liberty and appreciation of what makes us truly free, starting with you and me.
If you haven't heard, Texas is in the middle of the largest transmission build-out in its history, a proposed statewide network of roughly 2,400 miles of 765 kilovolt lines, the first transmission lines of this voltage ever built on the ERCOT grid. The state says they're needed to keep pace with soaring demand from data centers, population growth, in the Permian Basin. Nobody disputes that Texas needs more reliable power, but these lines don't generate power. They transport it. And here's what almost nobody outside of a handful of rural counties knows, is that the cheapest route on paper for the Dinosaur to Longshore line runs directly through working ranches, multi-generational family homesteads, spring-fed water sources, cemeteries, unmarked graves. These proposed transmission lines will not create a single new watt of electricity. They're giant extension cords, and extraordinarily expensive ones at that. Today you're going to meet Jake and Christie Hershey. 9 years ago, they bought a piece of land in Eastland County that was barely livable. With their own hands, they transformed it into a working cattle ranch. Now, a proposed segment of this line, link C14, could run approximately 700 feet from their front door, directly over their only water source and a private natural gas well. Before we get into their story, I want to say this directly to our state legislators, the Public Utility Commission, and Governor Abbott. Pause these lines, please. Reassess the plan. There is a more economical and frankly more humane and sensible way to deliver reliable power to the Permian Basin. Instead of stringing thousands of miles of new high voltage transmission lines across family ranches, what if Texas built reliable, dispatchable thermal generation closer to where the power is actually needed, using the resource the Permian Basin is already sitting on top of? Just a thought. Let's meet Christie and Jake. I'm Molly Vogt, and this is American Energy Works, the show that exposes how energy policy shapes our lives, our wallets, and our nation's strength. America runs on reliable, affordable energy, but powerful interests are working to shut it down. Here, we cut through the noise and shine a light on the real energy behind America's prosperity, our abundant, God-given resources, and the hard work, innovation, and freedom of the men and women who power this great nation. Because when we lose control of our energy, we lose control of our freedom. We're here to share the truth, to preserve that freedom for ourselves and for generations to come. This is American Energy Works. Christie and Jake, thank you so much for joining me today.
Thank you for having us.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you.
Listen, it's my honor to share your story today. I fear that Texas is at risk at losing our independent farms, our ranches, multi-generational properties, businesses, schools. We've got cemeteries that are at risk of being covered up. There's so many different things that are taking place in Texas, and I really wanted to just give the voice to everybody that's on the map, in the path of these proposed 765 lines that has something to lose, so that everybody knows it's not just all of our electric rates that are going to go up. If these 765 kV lines go up, it's actually also going to be a lot of property that is lost, Texas landscape, pristine land, and so much more. And so I wanted to share your story. And so if you don't mind, let's just start with your land. What does it mean to you? Tell us about what it looked like when you first got it and the work that you've done to it since.
It means everything. My wife and I come from very humble beginnings. We bought and sold several homes to get to this point. We bought this place 100% on our own, no help from anyone. 9 years ago, the house was built in 1940?
Yeah.
It's an old ranch house, barely livable when we bought the place, but we wanted the land. The land hadn't been productive for years. A gal inherited it from her father, who had lived here for a long time and ranched on it, but she hadn't done anything with it. So we bought it because we wanted the land. We knew the value. It's always what we worked towards for 20 years together, 20 plus years. And we poured every extra dollar we have into the land and the home over the course of 9 years as we could. The property is just now about where we want it. I've cut hundreds of mesquites off this property by hand. You wouldn't, everything I've done is by hand. We're not wealthy. I don't have equipment. I can't afford to pay someone with the grubber and stuff. I've spent weeks and weeks combined cutting mesquites by hand, then cutting the limbs off of them so I can handle them, then loading them on a flatbed trailer, then hauling them to a brush pile, and then burn them. There's not a mesquite on this place now. It's all pristine grass. We're also both real estate agents, so we're very savvy on land values. That's another thing. We both work about have three different sources of income to do what we do. But real estate's one of them. This place is for sure tripled, if not quadrupled in value since we bought it, just because of urban sprawl and COVID and Yellowstone. So it means everything. We don't have retirement. I've been self-employed my entire adult life. That's why we poured everything we had into this place, because we knew we'd have a ton of equity. And if this thing comes, that's all shot to hell.
So this is your retirement plan.
Yes, for
This
sure.
is it.
Yes.
Well, we want to protect that. Let's talk about the route that Encore is proposing. Can you talk about where the towers would go, where would the lines go on your property or near your house?
700 feet from our back door of our home. The widest part of our property is where it crosses, but it crosses. If you step out our back door, it runs in a horizontal line from east to west, and it's 700 feet from our back door.
And that's where we spend most of our
Help-
time.
Yeah, and that's where we spend most of our time.
And help people understand the scale. Like, how tall are these towers and how wide is the cleared corridor that will be necessary for them in your property?
200 foot high. I've seen graphics. I don't know if they're accurate, but it's like 3 or 4 big Texas from the Texas State Fair. 200 foot high with a 200 foot wide easement. Largest lines this size have never been built in the state of Texas. There's no studies for them. I forget how many wires are on them, like 15 wires. They're just monstrosities. They're huge skyscrapers. They'd be 700 foot from our back door, and that's what it is.
Let's talk about what's irreplaceable on your property. You talked about your water source. Tell us about your water source.
That's definitely irreplaceable. So the water for our home comes from a spring-fed dirt tank or pond. That is 700 feet from our home. So the line runs right next to, nearly on top of this spring-fed pond. And I forget how deep they have to go to set these towers and all that. It would most definitely disrupt that spring. If that spring is disrupted, we have no water. For our home, for our livestock, we have no water. We have drilled dry holes for wells. It's not happening, at least anywhere near the home. And we don't have tens of thousands of dollars to keep drilling dry holes. This property has 7 ponds on it, but during the drought, every single one of them was bone dry, except for this spring-fed pond. So the water for ourselves, our home, and all that entails, our cattle, our horses, our dogs, everything came out of that one pond. And if this thing comes through, we don't have water. So I don't know how we would live here. I don't know.
Yeah. Your entire livelihood depends on that spring being unencumbered.
Oh, yes, our livelihood and life. Pretty hard to live without water.
And life. Yeah. Yeah. We don't make it very long. We know we've had a lot of droughts here in Texas. Okay, so what about the cattle? How do the cattle move around in your land, and how do you think this would affect them? Other than the water, how else would the lines affect them?
Well, I have a lot of friends from all over the country and Texas that have been impacted by lines in the past. So this isn't just hearsay and things. I've talked to a lot of people that have had this happen. Of course, the towers weren't as big as these would be, but they've told me that cattle won't cross under the lines. They have problems with conception rates as far as cows not getting bred or cows aborting and not staying bred. That'd be a huge hit to our income. Specifically, so our pens, our cow pens are, no matter what, no matter where the cattle are, they would have to cross under these lines to get to the pens for us to do anything with. And if they won't cross under them, then then there you are. I mean, what do you do? Build another set of pens way out in the middle. So
Which is more money and more work for you.
yeah, tens of thousands of dollars to build a good set of pipe per house, which is what we have now.
You said it's a cow-calf operation. How does that work, and how many cattle do you have?
A cow-calf operation is just as it sounds. We have mother cows and a bull. Bull breeds those cows. Those cows have calves. They get to a certain weight. We sell those calves. And that's how it works. As far as numbers, that's kind of like asking a guy from town how much money he has in his bank account. I will say that between urban sprawl and drought and losing leases and stuff, we are at 10% of the cattle that we had before the drought hit.
And what happens to our food supply if we destroy these independent ranches and cow-calf operations across Texas and America?
I don't know what people think we're going to do. Import all of our meat? I don't know what people think we're going to do. If we don't, what happens to our food supply is it's non-existent. And it's happening every day. Yeah. This land's being taken. I really believe this whole thing's just a land grab. I think it's to where they can get easements onto private property. And I don't want to ramble on, but I remember telling her when we first got the letter, first heard about it, we were just flabbergasted. And I said, they expect us to just wear us down. I said, who are we to fight against this conglomerate of people with billions of dollars behind them? They've planned all this. They've got a team of lawyers, blah, blah, blah. I said, well, we'll fight to the death, but I guarantee they've got all this set up to where people just go, okay, you win. I can't fight you. I give up.
Yeah.
But there's not going to be any cattle left. Or they'll be in feedlots on concrete. Yeah. That will be the only cattle left.
Which is not what we want.
Exactly.
Which is not what we want. So I was looking at your testimony, and you mentioned gas wells and gas lines on the property. Can you tell us a little bit about that? Are the lines going to go close to those, cross over those, near those? I mean, what kind of concerns should we have just with these high voltage lines, highest voltage that we've ever had in Texas, going in near gas lines? I mean, what concern, have you heard anything about what that might do?
No, but common sense, proximity, they go right over the top of it. There's a private gas well that the man who lived here for decades had that supplied this home, and the lines go right over the top of all that. And that's another concern, is fire. These things have 765 kilovolts going through them. One little spark I mean, this pretty much we live in a tinderbox. It's all open.
Yeah.
700 feet from those lines to our home.
Yeah. And then also you mentioned oak wilt in your testimony. Tell us about your trees and what are you concerned might happen there?
You want
So the concern is we have an area where there are multiple trees, oak trees, and the concern is they're going to be clearing this area, and also coming from the neighbor's side of the property. There's a lot of trees, and all of that's going to be cleared. And so when they do that process, there's a high risk of developing these diseases, and then it can affect the rest of the property. So it's a very high concern.
And another thing, saying trees makes me think of is the impact of the wildlife on this property. I sent you videos of 100 plus ducks on the spring-fed pond that come every year. And every year we have people stop and ask, can I hunt ducks on your place? No. And I laugh. I've got a good friend that lives nearby that's a guides duck hunts. He begs me. And I said, no, this is a refuge for all the local ducks. Just being funny, but we have ducks, geese, crane. Can't think of what else is on the ponds. We've got deer, we've got turkeys, we've got everything. And this thing comes through and wipes out the tree. No matter what, we won't see him again. Like she said, the neighbor next to us, it goes through them before it gets to us. It's solid brush, woods. And when they run 200 foot wide and clear all that, there's not going to be anything left in that to come on our property.
And so if this happens, if this line goes through, which God willing it won't, what do things look like for you all in 5 years from now?
We don't know. Honestly, I haven't slept much in over a year since we got the first letter. You know, people say, well, why don't you sell? And like I said, we're well versed in real estate stuff. But I don't know in 5 years. I don't know. We may be forced to live here. I tell people maybe we'll just stay here and slowly die of cancer from the lines together. And sit out on the porch and let the hum of the frickin' lines go into our brains and drive us crazy and give us cancer, and we'll just sit here and wither away. Or we sell, I would assume, I would hope at not a discounted rate, but studies say. So we go from being debt-free, which we also did, paying triple our mortgage payment for several years and pouring every extra dollar and dime we made into our mortgage and our home so that we could be debt-free, to having a lot of debt again. If we sold this place at less than it's worth right now and then had to go buy another. Starting over again.
Christie, what would you say you lose that no settlement check could ever replace?
Our livelihood, the peace, and what we enjoy. We love it here. We love the area, the proximity to the surrounding towns. So we would pretty much lose everything that we work for.
That's the value in this property is in the land. Land has gotten so high that with just the cost of the land, what land costs in this area, most people that can afford a tract this size probably aren't going to live in a home like we live in. Because, we're talking 7 figures for the land. So and we can't be any further away from where my wife works. She's 30 miles away. She doesn't want to be any further away from where she works. I don't blame her. If you go, we're right on the Eastland-Erath County line. If we were to move closer to where she works in Erath County, as soon as you cross that line, then land really goes up. So there's no way we could even sell this at the current market value and buy anything close to it within the proximity of where she works for the same price, unless it didn't have a home on. That's what I'm saying.
Well, I want to give you an opportunity to just make some final comments to the PUC, Governor Abbott, and our Texas legislators. I know that they are looking at this right now. A lot of people are standing up. I'm thankful that 43 of our Texas legislators did sign on to an amicus brief asking the PUC to stall these lines right now, to pause it, to let it go back to the legislature, let them talk about alternatives to creating the additional energy that we need. I mean, literally alternatives, not moving these lines to another area, another property, another section of the state, but literally doing something completely different to bring us reliable, affordable thermal energy rather than these long, big extension cords that are really just covering up for our distorted market in Texas that, let's be honest, we took the subsidies for wind and solar, so we overbuilt wind and solar, and these are trying to cover that up. But it's we can't keep covering it up with Band-Aids. We literally need a shift in our energy policy, and our legislature needs to do that. And they also need to take a look, I believe, at families and ranches like yours. I mean, you guys, you said that 9 years ago you found this property and it was not in the best of shape. You poured your blood, sweat, and tears into building the home, into building the property. Now you have a functioning cattle operation, and God bless you for all that you've done. And I hope and pray, and we're going to fight right alongside you to make sure that you continue to keep that and your retirement is not stolen from you. But let's just give your final words to the decision makers from you to them.
If they were standing in front of me, I should have made notes. First thing I would say is I'm not against progress. Well, that's true. I am against progress, but I understand progress is going to happen. These lines, it's common sense. They make no sense. If it's for the Permian Basin, it's been proven. American Stewards of Liberty, they filed their brief. It's proven that the same power can be generated in the Permian Basin with natural gas. None of this has to happen. So that problem is solved. That's number one. Number two, you see all this stuff about saving agriculture and blah, 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 and the American dream. And blah. We are the American dream. She and I, on our own. It's not much, but by God, it's ours. And it's paid for. And we've done it on our frickin' own. And we've never asked for help from anyone. We don't talk about it. I don't like saying it publicly like this, but this is where we are. That's a fact. So if you're stepping on our throat, what do you expect the rest of? No one's even going to want to fight for the American dream. It's harder now than it's ever been to be in agriculture. Land prices have gone through the roof. Everything else, blah, 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 blah. But we have done it. We're still holding on. Like I said, we're 10% where we were, and plans have changed because land values changed and leased ground has been lost due to urban sprawl and blah, blah, blah. But we've got what we've got, and it's ours, and it's paid for, and we've built it ourselves. And there's no need for what they're proposing to come through. If there was a need, I would say this is horrible, but we understand this. We got to have more power for the state. We got to have power in the Permian Basin, blah, blah, blah. These things don't help the grid. That's a lie. And the power can be done in the Permian Basin. So I just told her this morning, if justice is still served and common sense still prevails, this will all go away. And I've got more hope now than I ever did, but I don't have very much hope. So
Christie, do you have anything you want to add?
Just everything that Jake has pointed out. It's just unnecessary, and we would just ask that they really look into this as factual and the purpose, and just keep in mind what they're taking away.
If it was proven that this is what had to be done, and we were in the line of it, so be it. That's the way the world works. Give us what our property's worth, and we'll go find something, whatever. But that ain't going to happen. I know what they pay for easements. I've talked, like I said, to plenty of people. It's a joke. So that's not even an option.
Yep.
And all the runoff that would run into our pond that supplies water for our home, that would screw up, that would pollute the water. And it's just, I'd say, please use common sense. Just look at the facts. These things are indisputable. There's no need for this. And thank you for standing up for independent folks like us that don't ask for nothing from nobody. We didn't want to do this. We feel like we're asking for help. We're at our ropes end. Thank you for all you do, Mom. Thank you very much.
So that's one story, Jake and Christie Hershey's story. Now multiply it across every mile of the Dinosaur to Longshore route and across every other 765 kV corridor currently on the state's drawing board, or perhaps I should say carving board, and you begin to understand the true scale of what is being asked of rural Texas. And for what? Greater access to more weather-dependent energy? No, thank you. Texas, we can do better. So once again, I am speaking directly to our legislators, the Public Utility Commission, and Governor Abbott. Pause this project. Reassess the plan. Look seriously at building new, reliable thermal generation closer to the load and closer to the Permian Basin instead of routing massive new transmission corridors through working ranches, spring-fed water sources, cemeteries, and burial grounds. Texas does not have to choose between reliability and respecting the people who have spent generations stewarding this land. If we were to be good stewards of the land God has blessed us with, shouldn't we pursue the most economical and direct solution? Build the power close to where it's needed, using the resource the Permian Basin already has in abundance. Friends, if you want your voice included before this case closes, search for PUC docket 59315 and SOA docket 473-26-13152. Review the filings, submit your comments, and make your voice heard. Thank you for watching.
Enjoy great programming brought to you by the Media Liberty Alliance Foundation in cooperation with OBBM Network TV and other independent networks, bringing citizen-led creative local media to the forefront of local communities to foster a greater understanding of constitutional liberty and appreciation of what makes us truly free, starting with you and me.